Good evening to everybody. This is the market feedback for the 27th auction of this year, the selling season, as well as a livestock market feedback. So tonight we'll start off with Leon du Plessis giving us a market report on the wool market. Afterwards, Gert Jordan will give us a livestock overview, as well as Jacques Taljaard. And then we have a very special guest tonight, Dalena White from the IWTO. Talking to us about the Congress that was held last week. So, first off, Leon du Plessis, will you give us a market report?
Thank you, Isak, and welcome to everyone listening to our national market report. Catalog 61 were concluded today with about 7,320 bales that were on offer. The sale consisted mainly of wool of medium length with 40 to 59 millimeters. 73% of the clip offered for the auction were finer than 20 microns. We were able our passed in and our no bid rate at 7.5%. If we move on to the next slide, we will see that our early market indicators show that we are down by about 1.6%, the South African market, and the Australian market stayed about unchanged for the same period this week. So we are currently trading at about 143 Rand, our clean price, comparing to 5 Rand. So that leaves us with a difference of about 30% that we're trading lower than a year ago. If we move on to the next one, we will see that the Rand strengthened around about to all of the major currencies, but the one we're looking at is the dollar, where the Rand strengthened at 3.2%. That's the main factor for our 1.6% downward movement in the market. So if we remove the exchange rate influence, then we are about up by 2.2%. With the exchange rate given, we're still down by 1.6%. If we move on to the next one, we will see that the wool that were the least affected for the day would just about different than last week. Last week, the little bit longer wools did excellent. This week, we were still our MF4 types, the 19.2 micron and finer, but this time with lengths of 40 to 55 millimeters, they were the ones that did well. The biggest losses for the day were recorded on the average to the inferior types of about 19.5 micron. And this time it were on the little bit longer lengths, the ones of 60 to 95 millimeters. The group that did the best for the day were our 60 micron and finer, and again with a little bit shorter lengths of 40 to 55 millimeters. They were the best sellers for the day. If we move on to our next slide, we will see that we had good competition between the buyers, and the three top buyers for the day were Standard Wool with 1,626 bales, Limpreer bought about 1,102 bales, and Stuken with 959 bales for the day. If we move on to the next one, we would like to take the opportunity to congratulate our producers whose wool did exceptionally well on the day. It were Ambatu Pty Limited with a top price of 142 Rand and 10 cents. And then we would like to congratulate Mr. George and Walter Burgersdorp. They are sharing the second prize with Mr. Yapi and James Jordan from Craddock. Both of them got 138 Rand 30 on their two different lines. If we move on to the next slide, I would quickly like to take the time for the few remaining weeks of the season to maybe visit all the different divisions within BKB in the wool handling chain, to just maybe give some info to our producers what happened to the wool after they leave the farm, but also to give some tips on how our producers can help us as BKB to do the best we can in preparation of their wool for auction. So today, this slide or this photo was taken in the receival area, and this is mainly where the first part of the catalog preparation starts. Wool are sorted into types and lengths and are given their different lot numbers already here at the receival. So this is why it's extremely important for each bale that arrives at BKB to be accompanied by a clip advice. On this clip advice, the 6-digit producer number starting with an A should be added, and any producer can feel free to give us specific instructions on what he wants to do with his clip, maybe on specific auction dates, specific way it needs to be presented. So please give us any specific instructions that you would like to do. Mainly if there's any underweight bales, that can be indicated as well. So yeah, that is all from me. Thank you, Isaac.
Now, I think the current market circumstances stay, well, the best word I think we can choose is challenging. We are trading under very difficult conditions. And to that extent, to such an extent that we are currently trying to control the volumes of the wool that we're putting on auction, just to make sure that we don't oversupply the market. Jacques Talliot will give us an overview of the kind of wools that he is the most that he mostly sells. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you, Isaac. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, just a summary of what happened in the star sale room. I think we're starting with the lambs. We call them the cardings, 38 to 42 mils. Specific, your 17 microns improved with 7% today. That was a good news for us. But just note, it's only 17. Coarser than 17 basically stayed unchanged. If we go up to your white wools, 21, 23 micron, they had an improvement of 2%. That is par on what happened in Australia with your coarser wools. And then the surprise of the day, the locks took a tumble again. They came down with 30%, especially your locks 2s. So yeah, I think we need to get the preparation on those types of wools 100% up to scratch. Isaac, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacques. Now, of course, wool is only a big percentage of our producers' income, but meat is our other big earner. So over to you, Gert Jordan. Please give us a market overview of what happened with the meat prices this week.
Isaac, thank you very much, and a very good evening to all our viewers. Yeah, just a report back on our digital auction of this past Monday, the 25th. Quickly looking at the attendance, the auction was there was 34 bidders partaking in the auction, and that resulted in 332 accepted internet bids, and also drawing the attention of a large online viewer audience of 136. So yeah, it's always interesting to see how many bidders are logged in, buyers, and then also remember there's an option if you go to BKB's website and you click under digital auctions. You go and you have the ability to just view the auction as well. You don't have to be logged in as a buyer, but yeah. So you have that option to follow the auction. It's very interesting. Just back to the auction itself, the prices for the store lambs, we had a big variety of store lambs, different ages, different weights, shorn, and some young lambs coming in. It's a quick one. Sorry, just an interruption here. Yeah. So looking at the market again, it was on a very high level as it was the previous 3 weeks, much of the same. As we look at the store lambs, the younger lambs, 4 to 6 months old, between 25 and 34 kilograms, an average price of 41 rand and 53 cents was realized on the auction, and the highest price was for a group of 200 young lambs sold by Colby Culver from Gariep Dam. They weighed in the region of between 25 and 26 kilos, and he got 43 rand per kilo for those lambs. A very good, nice, healthy lot of lambs. Moving over to the shorn lambs between 4 to 6 months, weighing 34 kilos and plus. It was more or less 2 rand less than the lambs with the wool on. An average price of 39.25 was realized there. And then we had some fat lambs as well on sale, and the fat lambs was in at 39 rand, and they weighed 44 kilograms, and they belong to Abraham Steyn from Venterstad. Nice young lambs looking really good. All right, and then moving over to the C grades, again, it was more or less the same as the last 3 weeks on the sale, averaging around 23 rand. So, and they belong to Jaco Foster again from Barclay East. Just looking towards next week, I think we'll see much of the same. The higher price is still due to a shortage in supply, and I see that next week we'll see more or less the same in the market. I just like to encourage all our farmers to go into their herds, and the moment your lambs are 25 kilos plus on average, at about 27 kilos average, I encourage you to sell them and get them into the market as quickly as possible for you to take advantage of the current market situation. We need more lambs in the market. The feedlots are
Okay, well, as I said, we are very, very fortunate tonight to have Daliana White, the Secretary General of the IWTO, as our guest for the night. And Daliana, maybe just before we start talking about the serious stuff, just tell us about yourself. How did the South African born and bred person came to be the Secretary General of the IWTO and living in Brussels?
Hello, Isak. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's really quite stressful to go on live TV with you out of the IWTO office here in Brussels, but I'll do my best. Yes, I studied fashion design. I then went into the factories, manufacturing jeans for Levi, actually. Worked myself up to director on the board, and then joined the wool industry as a consultant for marketing and R&D around 2008 when I joined Cape Wools. And the European angle really came from our son. As we often do, we follow our children. And he said he wanted to do a postgrad in Europe. We said, okay, great, that's an excuse to come on holiday. So we booked a family holiday. At the same time, I heard about a position coming available at IWTO. And my husband, Harry, always says, to catch a fish, you have to cast a line. Without the hook in the water, you can't catch anything. So I thought, okay, I'll cast a line and go on holiday. And then I was called in for an interview that December. I was shortlisted, came back in February to present myself to the board. And I must have done something right because I then arrived in May 4 years ago.
I have to say, every time I speak to Daliana, and I'm very, very proud for the fact that she is there. Daliana, many of our producers heard years about the IWTO. Maybe you can just give us a short overview of what does the IWTO do, and specifically what do they mean to us in South Africa?
Yes, so I know South Africa is quite involved in IWTO. That's why I knew about the organization. And it is a member organization. All decisions are taken by members. At first at the heads of delegation meeting, which we had last week, Saturday. And now we're busy putting together the General Assembly where these decisions will be formalized. So the organization is very much built on a base of scientific evidence. Our working groups and our committees tirelessly work at putting the science forward. We are an industry that prides itself in its integrity, and the information we give out to our media partners and our marketing partners must be based in well-researched, peer-reviewed science. There's enough rubbish on the internet. We don't need to add to that. So when we put wool facts forward, it's based on science. And our members work very hard on putting that on the table for everybody's benefit. Many of our working group and committee chairmen are based in South Africa, so I think you're quite involved in those working groups. And of course, all the activities are funded by IWTO members. So there are no big corporate investments, outside investments. It's all funded by the members, for the members.
I always think when we work with and for the IWTO that the IWTO is really the voice of the wool industry in the retail market. And Delena, you had your congress last week, and it's the first ever digital congress that you had to have. I knew you grew a few gray hairs, although I can't see them from here. Please give us a bit of an overview of what's the main things that stood out for you during the congress.
Yes, Isak, as you know, from all the ladies in lockdown, we've all gone grey. So luckily you can't see my extra ones. But first and foremost, I would say that the conference showed me that our members are resilient. We have learned over the years to roll with the punches. And as we prepared to celebrate 90 years of IWTO, first in China, we then had to move it to Brussels. And just as we got comfortable with that, we had to move it into a digital platform. And our members just made those moves seamlessly. And that is, I think, one of the reasons why we are still around today, is because our members can reinvent themselves. And secondly, is that from the presentations we saw last week, I think we're in for a long distance race. I'm not a runner myself, but I can see that we're in a mess that we're not going to get out very soon. This is not different, and we need to understand how serious the environment is that we find ourselves in at the moment. And I think thirdly is that we can see our members are constantly reinventing themselves. They are well informed. With this new innovations and skills that they keep acquiring, we will get out of this mess as well.
Your feeling about the future of the wool industry? I know short term things looks bleak. So what was your feeling that you got from the members that joined you during the Congress? Are they despondent, or are they looking forward towards the future?
Yeah, Isak, I think we all have a bit of farmer in our DNA, and we always see the glass as half full. So we saw, when I joined the wool industry, they told me that it's a long pipeline in comparison to cotton and other fibers. We're talking about a really long pipeline, almost like a goods train. And at the moment, I feel like we find ourselves in the middle of a train wreck. So the front of this train has hit a brick wall, and these tremors are being felt right through to the back, and is hurting our pipeline all the way through. The one day we were out doing our thing, shopping, working, and the next day they told us to stay in. Overnight the retail shutters came down, and only now, almost 3 months later, in Europe they're slowly lifting again. But we're dealing with a public, firstly, that's scared, And secondly, they don't know if they're still going to have a paycheck next month. So clothing and white goods are not the stuff they're going to be spending their money on. So let's just understand that we are in a very depressed market right now. Towards the back of our train, we can now see how these tremors are being felt in all its severity. We saw the letters from spinners and processors asking us to slow down, to not push more wool into the pipeline. You can imagine the front of the train has come to an halt and the back is still moving forward, and they're being squashed in the middle. So we're in a difficult position that we haven't been in, I think, for the past 100 years. My Google feed is depressing, quite frankly. In Europe, they say that we have currently 51% more deaths than we had last year this time, and that it's underreported. The scientists feel that it will rise. From China, which is a huge market, also domestically, we see that they normally hover around 6% unemployment, but the latest report says that the young working class up to 30 years old are now 14% unemployed. We've seen the same figures from Europe and from America. You have the same issues in South Africa, young entrepreneurs having to close their doors. So that is the situation we're in. And we know in the high street, well-renowned names are filing for bankruptcy. So it's not a good time for textiles. But we have to face these facts. And I think as an industry, we are well equipped to do that. We have very strong leadership. And we now have to work our way out of this. And I'm entirely positive that wool has got a place in the post-COVID world. When I just arrived in Belgium, I learned about the European Union's circular economy plan, which is basically the foundation they're basing every other plan on. Whatever you want to sell in the European Union has to fit in a circular economy. And we know that wool fits into that perfectly. It's biodegradable, it's recyclable, it has a long life, it doesn't shed microfibers. It is the perfect fiber for this new European plan. And then just in January, before we got sent to Los Lounges, they launched their Green Deal plan, which has got millions of euro behind it, making sure that we will remove plastics from the environment, making sure that we will look at climate change and leave this planet in a better shape for our children. So I really honestly believe that wool has got a bright future. We were forced to shut down the planet and give it a break. There's a lovely presentation by Lee Edelkoort that speaks about that. We've seen all the images of waterways and nature recovering. And now it is up to us to make sure that we get the wool message out there for consumers to pick up once they come out of hiding again. And there is no better option than wool for post-COVID. That's how I feel.
Darlena, thank you so very much for your time. It's highly appreciated. I know you've got a cycle ride back home still lying ahead. Darlena tells me it's still very much daylight in Brussels. So I know this is your personal time that you spent on us, and it's highly appreciated. And we are very proud of you sitting there and doing the things that you are doing for us. So thank you so much. That's a wrap for me for the night. Please have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.